Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Today is a very special episode because I'm joined by my buddy Will Phelps and Chase and Aimee Bartee of Tight Loops. Now, if you're unfamiliar, we just released our feature-length movie, Hope in High Water, which was a collaborative effort between Wildfly, Tight Loops, and Will Phelps. And this was actually the first time that all four of us had sat together and been together since shooting this project back in August. We had just wrapped up 2 live film premieres, one in Salt Lake and one in Denver, and the whole crew got to be there for the Denver show. So this is just a day after the Denver show. We got to reflect on the entire project, as well as our thoughts, feelings, just what the experience was like at this premiere, and share some behind-the-scenes insight on how this project actually came to be. Stuff that you're not actually going to hear about in the movie. But if you do want to go watch the movie, it is live now on our website at wild-fly.com/movie. And when we were editing this, we knew this was bigger than your standard YouTube video. So we wanted to release it a little bit differently. We decided to create a pay what you think is fair paywall model, which gives you guys the opportunity to pay from $1 up, whatever you think is fair, and whatever you want to donate to us to help support this project and our future endeavors and future projects. And for those of you who donate $50 or more, we will be putting your name in the credits of the film when it goes live on YouTube eventually next year, which it'll live there forever. We are also donating a portion of our proceeds to Western Native Trout Initiative, which is an organization that helps protect, restore, and enhance native fish populations here in the West. So everything that you guys donate to the film, we're also donating a portion of that to Western Native Trout Initiative. This is a really fun conversation, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy it, especially if you've been following along with this project and you've maybe already seen the film. I think you'll really enjoy this. So, without further ado, let's jump in.
Talking about?
I don't know. Did we? Why are we here?
That's a good question. I'm wondering the same thing.
How did we all get up here?
I drove.
Where are we?
Okay, so we just hosted 2 film premieres to our new film, Hope in High Water. You can see our movie poster here, designed by the talented Aimee Bartee.
Art director.
Art director.
Yeah.
Big time.
It's a new title for me.
Yeah. But we just wrapped up our 2 film premieres, Denver and Salt Lake, and Will got to join us.
I'm the DP,
we
just so everyone knows.
Yeah.
That stands for Director of Photography.
Beautiful. I guess we haven't all been together since the trip, right? Like
yeah.
Collectively.
Yeah, true.
This has been a big project this year, and probably my favorite project I've worked on, just having everyone together and like getting us all to collaborate. So I guess we're just going to kind of reflect on the whole process now that we have finished the film. We've showed it to two audiences, and now we're about to release it here in a couple days to the public.
But you're still going to have to pay money to watch it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Kind of the public. We'll dive into all that here in a sec. But how are you guys feeling after? I guess we should start out with Will. Yeah. Will, your first time seeing the film was last night. You hadn't seen a cut. You hadn't even seen like, hey, Will, check out this scene.
Total surprise.
I knew nothing. That was very exciting. I was stoked on that. And I told you, I was like, I don't want to see it. I want to see it for the first time on the big screen. And I want to hear everyone's reactions to the live viewing, which is, I think it was so important with this whole process, was seeing it live in a big room with everyone there, and we all get to experience it together. Because as we've talked about amongst ourselves, but when you watch a video on YouTube, you're watching it alone most of the time. And you just see a number on the bottom, you know how many people have seen it, but you don't get to actually experience that viewing with those people watching the film. And to see it all together in a room with everyone, they're all seeing it for the first time along with us and like experiencing it together as a group. It's a much different experience than just hitting play and watching it on a screen wherever you might be in the world. So I thought it was awesome. I'm super stoked. You guys did such an incredible job putting the film together, and I didn't do any editing because I know like y'all were gonna crush it. There was no question because of all the work that y'all have put out. Of course, I've seen all of your films, and I've seen pretty much everything that Scotty's put out too, and
Pretty much.
I mean, there's a lot to watch on the internet.
There's a lot you don't need to see.
It's a lot easier to get through our filmography because there's like 10 videos we've ever made.
It's
So.
a little light on content, but
Yeah, so like it was a given you were going to crush it. So I felt confident handing off all the footage to you guys and knowing that you were going to put out something way better than I would have been able to do myself. So I love that feeling, knowing that I did the job to my best ability, because I think of myself as a filmer most of the time. I don't think of myself as an editor. Editing is usually a task that I have to do. It's a part of filmmaking. It's a part of learning how to be a filmmaker. You can't be a filmer without being an editor, and you can't be an editor without being a filmer. And it's a really important part of the process to do both, so you have an understanding of how to do your job. And I know you guys are just such great editors, so it's a pleasure to be able to do the filming and hand it off to someone that's going to actually do the footage justice and create the story how it should be told.
Yeah, and you crush it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had the same sentiment for the other way around. I mean, we talked about it a bunch during the trip when we were filming it. Like, we had such full confidence in you behind the camera that we never even needed. I mean, we did do like show and tell when we were dumping footage and reviewing. We're like, I didn't feel like I needed to review anything to make sure we were getting it. Like, we knew you were getting it.
We were getting it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think, I mean, of any of us here, you're like the most consummate professional when it comes to filmmaking, in terms of being behind the camera. Because, I don't know, your career has taken you all over the place. You've had lots of like high pressure jobs where you've had to perform. Yeah. Just in terms of like showing up and getting it done, I feel like you're the most reliable person that I probably know. So yeah, full confidence on site that you were going to get it. And then it's cool to know you had confidence that we'd take care of it on the back end. I was just thinking, how funny would it be if you were like handed off the footage and you're like, I'm going to also make my own edit that I'm going to put on to like my YouTube channel. If there was like the Phelps cut,
The deep cut.
you're like, you guys go ahead and make whatever you're going to make, but I'm just going to make sure that like I at least get one good cut out of this. So I'm gonna
Definitely
make
not
my
going to be up to my standards.
No, I knew there was no way that it would be anywhere near as good as y'all, so I just decided not to do that this time around. And that's just too much work too. So
It was a lot of work. This project was long. I mean, planning, we started talking about this in January of last year, or this year, I guess, 2023. Now we're in December.
yeah.
And then it took a lot of hoops and things we had to jump through to get there. And then last minute had to change gears and kind of switch our plans up, which I think we talked about this in the last podcast. But I don't know. It was crazy how so much during the trip we thought everything was going wrong. And we thought, I think you even said this in the film, but it's like all these things are going wrong, all these things are going wrong. And then you come away with it and it's like this incredible story. And you're like, how did you just, we had hope that it was just going to happen, and was not at all what we thought it was going to be, but
Yeah.
turned out to be kind of cool. And I hope people are stoked about it, because I'm super proud. And it was fun to collaborate with you guys, especially this last week. We were staying up late. It was a rush to the finish line. We literally exported the day of the Salt Lake premiere
Yeah,
to
like
get it out.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
after like not sleeping for days, and yeah, questionable decisions could have been made at 2 a.m. But we pulled it off. We made it through.
Yeah.
In this podcast, are we allowed to like talk spoilers about the film at all, or is this like it's
I
out?
think
The film's out, right? People.
By the time
but
this
I don't
comes
think we
out.
should say too many spoilers,
Okay.
but we should talk about like stuff that happened throughout the trip.
Right. Well, I was gonna say that the film ended up, I think, being very relatable, at least from what we can tell from our first 2 test screenings. You know, with an audience, it seems like people can really relate to this type of story. You know, there's a lot of really exotic, incredible fishing films that are out of like just once in a lifetime fishing events, like the biggest fish of your life, the most fish you've ever caught. And like, that's not really what happens in this film. And I think it's hard for the average person to relate to a story like that, because you might go your whole life and never get a day like some of the days you've seen in the big fishing films, but like everyone's gotten their ass kicked, you know, and this is kind of a story about getting your ass kicked a little bit. And like, yeah, without giving away too much, like we find some decent fishing, but it's not like out of this world. But in comparison to like how bad we're getting our asses kicked, like it feels like the best day of fishing. You know, I think everyone's kind of had that moment out on the water. I think it's easier to come by those than it is like the unbelievable banner days that, you know, once in a lifetime fishing opportunities. Like it's pretty easy to get skunked, where then you're like 12-inch whitefish is like a trophy, you know what I mean? Because you've been beaten down so bad or whatever. We don't catch any whitefish in this film. Actually, Scotty caught one, but it's not on camera. delete.
Me fighting it, and then we cut to a trout. No, I'm just kidding. But we do. We got one or two whitefish or something. Yeah, it was. It was a very relatable story, I think, and we also did it all on public land, and everything was accessible by 4-wheel drive trucks or cars. What was it like for you, Will, throughout the trip? You know, we went in with a certain idea and expectation of what we wanted to capture, but obviously we were throwing all these hoops and all these different obstacles. What was it like for you filming that and trying to make sure we got the story?
Yeah, did you feel any added pressure, knowing that, you know, like things weren't going well, that if you did like miss a take, it might be like the only one we get? Or like, I don't know, did it feel like higher stakes because things weren't going well?
Yeah, there's no question about that, because, you know, as everyone that's probably watching knows, anything can happen when you're fishing. It can seem really, really horrible, and then out of the blue, you know, that 22-inch monster cutty eats the fly. And if you're not in it when that happens, and everyone's like, morale is down, the camera is down, not recording, and then it just happens and you miss it, like there's the moment where the climax of the film happens and it wasn't filmed. So for me, I always have to be in the game, even when the anglers are not paying attention and totally disregarding the fishing. I have to expect the most out of the situation in any given angling situation. That's just the only way to approach it when you're the camera guy, and it's your job to be there and capture it. Because I find myself sometimes drifting into the mindset of the angler when we're all kind of in it together, because we're all out there experiencing together, and you don't really see it unless you watch a behind the scenes cut of the film, which I don't know if it exists, but we're all hanging out and we're talking and we're kind of all there together. You don't really see me in the film because I'm behind the lens filming it the whole time, but like we're all kind of experiencing it together and going through it together. And sometimes it's hard to take yourself out of that mindset of being in the moment with the anglers. So when their morale is down, sometimes my morale gets down, and then I lose focus and we're all just kind of hanging out like, oh, what do we do? And then I have to step back from that situation and be like, wow, I actually need to be capturing this moment of us, you know, figuring out what to do, capturing them, and not be in the situation. You have to kind of step back and pull yourself out of it and observe from an outer perspective, which can be really hard to do, especially when you're with your friends and you're enjoying a certain scenario together. You have to take the stand to be like, no, I need to actually take myself out of this situation and not be involved, and step back and then just observe and document it. And that for me can be really tough because, you know, we're all out there having a good time, and you get caught up in that situation where you're kind of becoming a part of the film, but you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that to me can always be tough, but at the same time I enjoy it because it really puts you in that position of observing. And when it really came down to the wire, and it was our last spot on the film, you know, you guys were all down, and I could tell. And we were camping in this one spot for days, just waiting for the fishing to be good. And everyone's morale was down, but I knew that it was going to be good fishing. Like I could see the watercolor and like how things were developing. I was like, wait, this is it. Like I could feel it. You know, you get that energy, that spidey tingle, you know? And that was the moment for me to like step back and like really get my head in the game. And I don't know how that sense came upon me. I'm really glad it did, because that day I was able to step back and really like try and capture what was going down. Because if that didn't happen, then we might not have had the right morale going into the situation to actually get it done. and we ended up getting it done. And I don't know, it's just those moments when it comes down to the wire like that, where you just have to like just buckle down, and no matter what, just keep pushing through those hard times. And that's a reflection of just being an angler too, not just being a camera guy and documenting it, but when things get tough, that's sometimes when it can get good. Like you don't know, like anything can happen in fishing. That's why it's awesome, because unexpected things happen. And when you really push through those hard situations, more often than not, it pays off.
Do you feel like it's hard? Sorry to keep asking you pointed questions, but we've done 2 of these podcasts already with just us without you. So I've got lots of questions I've been wanting to ask you. Do you feel like as an angler, because you're also a super avid angler, I mean, you're 50% angler, 50% filmer, you know what I mean? Like you probably want to be fishing just as bad as you want to be filming. Like when the fishing turns on like that, do you ever get the FOMO of like, fuck, I want to take a cast or whatever? Or are you just as stoked to be like getting it behind the camera? Cause like you went through all the same stuff we did, just like slogging through the rain, being miserable. And then like, if things get good, you'd be like, I want to partake in this. Or you're like, is your role rewarding enough where you're like, yes, like I'm getting it on camera. Like this is good enough for me. Like I don't even need to fish or whatever.
Yeah, oddly enough, I would much rather be behind the camera when that happens, because you have to be a decent enough angler to be able to capture it in the way that it should be captured. And the only time I ever want to actually be the guy fishing or the gal fishing, but I'm a guy, so I say guy. I'm just trying to be PC here.
You're the guy.
I'm the guy. The only person I ever want to be, the only time I ever want to be the angler is when the angler sucks. So thankfully you guys can all whip a whippy stick.
We can all dangle.
You can all dangle the fly pole. Yeah. And in that time, when I'm with people that can fish, I would much rather be the camera guy, because it takes 2 to tango. Yeah. Someone's got to be the camera person. Someone's got to be the angler. And I love fishing, but I also love filming. And when you put 2 and 2 together and you come out with the result that we're all here to accomplish, that's way more satisfying to me than actually catching the fish myself. Because I don't need to catch more fish. I've caught a lot of fish in my life, and I will catch more. You know, I have a lot of years ahead, and there's no reason to like feel that anxiety to catch a fish. Like I just put that behind me. I don't really need to be there and catch that fish. I can go fishing on my own whenever I want. Like when you're there in the moment behind the camera and I'm there doing my job, and the fishing's really good and the anglers are really good, and you get that like magic that's happening, you know, that just makes me want to buckle down more and really like get it done.
Yeah, I'm sure you feel the same way about filming snowboarding or skiing, because I used to film skating too.
Totally.
Where it's like if your homie lands a trick that they've been sorting through and like you nail it, like it's like we did that, like we did this trick. Yes. Or same thing, like we landed this fish, you know, like yeah, it feels like a group effort or whatever.
It is 100%. And especially with snowboarding, and I love snowboarding with people that are way better than me, because then I really feel like it's the time for me to step back and let them do what they do best, and then I'll do what I do best. And then it takes, like I said, it takes 2 to tango, you know.
I think that's an overall theme of this entire project, especially these events, was just the team aspect of it was the coolest thing. I mean, we were here with, you know, we had our buddy JD Clayton here at the Airbnb who was playing music for us. We had my parents, my best friend from back home, Jared. We had Brent. Like we had our merch guy, Luke. We had the whole team here that helped make these events and this project possible. They planned some of the, you know, folks planned the events, like my mom and Dustin, which allowed us the space to finish the film. And then it was just like so rewarding and so exciting, even just being in the space together and everyone like interacting. A bunch of us had met for the first time in person, you know, this weekend. And that was like probably my favorite part. And I think that was a great reminder for me to like, you can't do it all by yourself, and to lean on people into their strengths and what they do. And I think in the final days of the edit, you know, I definitely leaned on you for certain things, and we knew we had to get the film done, but I was like, Chase, I'm going to have you do the color, sound, like that's what you do best. And I'll try to like finish whatever else with the film. I don't know. It was just like one of the coolest things all year for me personally this past weekend.
It's interesting because you started off doing it all yourself. And like as a YouTuber, and like all three of us are YouTubers, like you start off having to do everything yourself and you're wearing all the hats. You're the editor, you're the director, you're the colorist, you're the filmer. And this film, when I say film, it's more of it's a real big project. It's not just a YouTube video.
It's like a movie.
It's like a movie. And in order to take your work to that next level of being quote unquote a film, working together as a team is the only way to do it. It's hard to do something on this level on your own. I've seen it being done over here, but
You're a savage like
years.
Chase.
If you've got a year or two to spare, it can be done.
Also, we should also mention that you guys arrived maybe 5 or 6 days before premiere day in Salt Lake, and Chase was finishing the Baja video, like final touches.
Baja video premiered on Sunday. And like we got there on what, Friday or Saturday?
Yeah.
Had to finish the Baja video and then just roll straight into Hope and High Water and finish.
Sunday Baja went live. Wednesday was live premiere of this film. So
it was crazy down to the wire. And I think there was, for me, I was stuck there at the end because there was I feel like I had the bone structure in place, but there were some things that I didn't want to move forward on, or I was maybe unsure of before I ran it by you guys. And I think we did that first pass through when you guys got there, looked through what I had done so far, made our notes, and then basically like, all right, this is it. This is what we need to get done before the premiere. And I was super overwhelmed. Like I told you guys that night I had like a panic attack. I couldn't go back to sleep like in the middle of the night. I literally had a nightmare of me exporting the video the day of the premiere and like running into the venue late. I was so real. I was like, no. And so that was such a fear. It almost happened.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, how did you guys feel when you got there and you saw what we had and then what we had to do left before the premiere?
Oh, man. I think coming off of the schedule we were keeping, working on the Baja film, and how stressed we were with that, it was definitely stressful to arrive in Salt Lake and see the cut and be like, oh man, like we kind of have a lot to do and like we do not have a lot of time. But also in a lot of ways, I guess we were like already there in our heads, so of like, well, this is how we've been working for the last week, so like just keep it going, you know. But for sure, the difference between when Chase and I are working on videos and when he's doing the bulk of the work with the edit, as soon as you enter a team dynamic like that, which is like totally new to us with working on films, there's like a comfort that is brought in when there's other people that you're relying on too. And I think it helped in that situation to just feel a little bit less overwhelmed and realize like, okay, we're all going to work as a team. We're going to delegate tasks and we're going to get this done. And it like, I feel like the overarching feeling was like whatever it takes, you know, like we were all willing to do whatever it takes, and that really helps.
Right, because like Aimee and I are a team, but we're also so close all the time that we're kind of like a cohesive unit. Yeah. So if like morale is getting really down for one of us, I think it's like really
we're
easy
trying to lift each other up,
for the
but
other
it can
person
be
to like
hard.
fade too, because we're so like in tune with each other. Just because, been married forever with each other 24 hours a day. We live in a vehicle together, so
very aware of like emotional states and like stress levels and all that stuff. It really like affects both of us equally in so many ways. And
right, so there's a little bit of that, like if one of us is going down, like this is going down, like it's just all going down. Whereas with a bigger team, it's kind of like there's a little bit of pressure off knowing like if I get down, like someone else will be there to pick up the slack, and then we'll be able to trade off vice versa. Like if we need to, instills like a little bit more confidence where even though we're two people, like I said, it feels kind of like we're one person, and it's just like still just like all on us. You
and
know?
also,
so like if we can't figure it out, like no one's figuring it out. It's just not going to happen.
We're so used to bouncing things off of each other. And then for us to be able to like feel that like moment of almost crisis where you're like, I'm stuck, like I'm lost, I don't know where I'm going, like I can't figure this out, and then to be able to like walk in the other room and be like, hey, like what do you think about this, and have a outside perspective was super cool. And that helped so much, I think, to just like don't know, feel our way through it in a lot of ways. Like, how is this hitting? How does this feel to you? Like, this isn't working. And I mean, yeah, I feel like throughout the whole process, that was probably my favorite part, is to just sit down and be able to be so open with each other and gain each other's perspective and just, yeah, riff on things and see where it went. But
Yeah, because sometimes if you're editing solo, you'll be stuck somewhere and you just don't know what to do. And so you'll just sit there and nothing will get done
yeah.
and you won't make any progress on it. But trying something and then just bringing one of you guys in and be like, is this right? Like, does this feel right? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Different direction. Then you have a direction to go in. And then from there, you start making your way to like the right spot. Do you want to talk about what the workflow was looking like the last couple days? Because I felt like we were pretty good at delegating and
yeah, I mean,
roles, you know.
I don't know, might be, I feel like all of us can speak to the workflow, because I feel like I was more like, I don't know what the like official role would be. I wasn't doing like the physical edit, but I was like coming in, giving my opinion. We were all watching together, or like you'd pull me in if Chase was doing color, or, you know, like we'd be switching off a little bit.
Don't forget that you were basically like pulling and setting up like all the assets that were being edited with.
True.
Like
Yeah.
Scotty was doing the primary edit, and has been for like a month and a half leading up to that point. Basically, like Scotty cut the whole thing into the structure that it's in, and then when we got there, it was getting passed off to me for motion graphics, color, and sound. Although, to be honest, for the first round of it, like Scotty did most of the sound too. Like I only got to do a little bit of the stuff on the sound. So it's like I'm working on selected shots, Scotty's working on the overall edit, and then like a huge bulk of what was left to edit was tons of archival footage from us and from Scotty. And you were pulling all that stuff off of endless hard drives and thousands of clips, trying to locate what assets we need to be able to fill these gaps, talking about the history of our careers and friendship, etc. So we were just like all three on computers nonstop, just kind of like waiting on each other, being like, you got this ready yet? Like, yep, here it is. All right,
there
drop
was
that in.
so many
How's this
airdrop noises happening all the time. Like airdropping something to Scotty in his room, and you hear that doo-doo-doo-doo, and like airdropping all over the place, which is pretty funny. But for me, I mean, like I said, I think just the group, like feeling of working in a group, helps bring the stress level down on some level. I don't know if that's how you felt, Scotty, but like I think for Chase and I, it was a huge factor. And there were so many moments where like I was just sitting on your couch at your coffee table, like workstation, hard drive stacked up, and just like digging through all of these archival like folders of ancient photos that I haven't looked at in I don't even know how long. And I would just get like lost in them. And then you kind of forget like, oh my gosh, like this film needs to be done like in a day and a half or whatever. And I'm just like off in Journey on land, like, oh, look at this film photo. Like, I'm like airdropping it to people. But yeah, it was really fun overall. Like really great experience.
Yeah. And I don't know if most people who don't make films or edit films would necessarily relate to like that feeling of when you start to put those last pieces together, those little gaps that are in your timeline. But it's kind of like I'm sure everyone's done a puzzle before, but when you get to towards the end of a puzzle and there's really like
ramping
eight pieces, and they're just like, oh, here it is, like falling into place, like that satisfaction of like a big area being completed, you know, like
everything starts to fall into the right place, start to make sense, and it like brings everything together.
Because I'm sure, you know, Scotty, you were working on it for a long time, and you had a bunch of things that were essentially completed, but then you have these like gaps in certain areas, and I'm sure it's just anxiety inducing, being like, still don't know like exactly how these are going to work out. Like I hope it's going to be good, you know. And up until that point, it kind of, and especially coming down to the wire, it feels like this film is like not complete yet. You know, it's hard to feel good about it. But then as those like last bits start to go in, it's like, oh shit, it's a movie now. You know. Yeah.
And there was a couple scenes. I know specifically the one where we could talk a little bit about filmmaking that I cut, and I liked the feeling of it, and I felt like it was there, like pretty close. But I remember you guys watched it and you're like, it just doesn't hit, you know, like how it should. And that was something that maybe if I was working on it solo, I probably would have just been like, okay, it's fine, I'll move on. But getting that input, and then it's a completely different scene, like visually, than what it was originally cut to be. And I think that added so much impact to the scene. And it was really fun to like see a bunch of y'all's old photos and videos and put these pieces in. Because I always look at these fishing videos like a puzzle. It's like you go out and film before you really know what the story is. So you come back with all these puzzle pieces, and then you're now trying to put them in place to make something that's cohesive. And yeah, at the end there, it just was coming together up into the wire. And I remember when you and I were watching it, we're just so sleep deprived at this point. It's like 2 hours before the event, or 3 hours or something. We had just exported, which took way longer than we expected. And so we're watching the final pass of the final movie. Just Chase and I are just like silent, just holding our breath. Please, no mistakes, no mistakes.
Yeah, not enough time to do another export if there is a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a... I don't know. We got it done. I can't believe it. But
I think it made it like a little more nerve-wracking too, to like have it come down that close to the wire, and then like all of a sudden we're showing it to all these people, and like none of us have really had a lot of time to like sit on it, you know, like we're like, all right, like this is it, like we're going like full steam ahead, and then like we're watching it for the third or fourth time finalized with everybody, and you're like still forming opinions on it as you keep watching it. And that was it's kind of hard to like explain, like why wouldn't you just watch it back, but it's an hour long. So when you're on a tight schedule trying to get something done, like an hour isn't really like time you have, you know, to waste when there's still tasks that need to be done to complete it. So it's kind of hard to watch it back when you're screaming to the finish line like that. Like, yeah, you get it done and it's like we don't have an hour to sit here and like watch it carefully, you know? So yeah, that was happening in real time with the audiences. And luckily there was only one clip that was still in log, you know, in the final film, you know, only one. Yeah.
But it was subtle. I didn't even catch it.
Yeah.
It was super subtle.
Was it nuclear subtle?
Yeah, it was a nuclear.
It was, yeah. It was that Prairie Hoppers clip on the R5. Yeah.
One of me filming.
It was stuck in the middle of a bunch of archival photos, which didn't need a grade on them because they're already edited photos. So I was like, oh, here's a big section I don't need to grade, and just like moved past it without even like looking through each one of them. I didn't know there was like a video clip in there that was in log. But I saw that live, but I don't know if anyone else noticed. But that's fixed now.
Yeah. Good. What was it like for you guys to when we did finally show it for the first time in Salt Lake, and to watch it with everyone? Like, what was that experience like?
It was kind of intense. I think both Jason and I like looked at each other a whole bunch throughout it, just like making faces at each other, you know, just like, like people didn't laugh at that, like that was weird, or like, oh, like this was, you know, people thought this was really funny. But like for me, through most of the film, I was like actually physically shaking. I was so nervous, which I didn't really expect. I don't know what I expected, but the reality, like when it was like, all right, like turn the lights off and like the film's gonna start, and you kind of remember, oh yeah, like we're here for a film premiere, like all these people are about to watch this film that we made, and like we're gonna hear their responses like real time, like they're gonna give us feedback while they're watching it, and you don't get that when you're watching something on YouTube. I mean, you premiere something and you can interact with people through text and, you know, typing back and forth to each other, and that's really nice in a premiere. But then you just see numbers and people watching it, and you see some comments, and, you know, for however many hundreds of people that have watched it, you get like a comment. So the feedback is just a little bit different, and just the way people interact with you online compared to in person is so different too. But, you know, there was an overwhelming feeling of just like love and support from everyone there. That was pretty overwhelming and special.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. It's hard to explain, but I think as creatives and as artists, you have to be tremendously vulnerable to make meaningful work. And I think that's, you know, even more true with films like these that are personal stories that are, you know, obviously you have to be vulnerable because you're talking about yourself. But even if it wasn't a film about ourselves, even if we're telling a story about someone else, the creative process involves really opening yourself up and being vulnerable. So showing a film like that on stage, it kind of feels like an hour, like you're standing on stage naked for an hour or something. Like you can't really like disconnect from the work. It's not like, it's you up there, very, very vulnerable parts of you, which to people who maybe don't have a creative process like that might not make a lot of sense, but, or it might be hard to relate to, but
I get it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, that's the toughest thing, because you do want it to be real and you want to share, like you're saying, a personal story, but it can be tricky because you're like putting yourself out there and you're kind of just like, are they gonna laugh? Are they not? Like there were certain points in the film where people straight up just didn't laugh at the joke, and we're like, oh, damn, okay, that didn't hit. Yeah. But there's other parts where we didn't expect a laugh and someone laughed. Yeah. But I think it was really interesting to get that real-time feedback, and now before we launch it on, through the paywall to everybody to see it, I think there'll be a few things that we tweak, nothing major, but just a few things that we got real-time feedback that helped us make the film better, which is like a stand-up comedian who's going up doing, small bars or whatever, open mics to test out jokes, to feel the crowd out and see how they hit and don't hit. So that was like a completely new experience for me.
Yeah, it's a weird balance, because filmmaking, art of any kind, is this like intensely personal practice, but at the same time, it's media meant to be viewed, so it can't really exist in a vacuum. The end goal is for audience consumption. So the way an audience consumes something at the end of the day is kind of one of the most important factors. I'd like to say that it's like, nope, it's like the artist decides what the work is, and like you trust your instincts, and if people don't like it, like they're stupid or whatever, but that's not really true. Like we're making films for an audience. So at the end of the day, no matter how much we may have loved a certain scene or whatever, if it doesn't connect with audiences, then it's worthless, at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, because we all experienced it in our own way, and out there when we're fishing and going through hope and high water, and to be able to take what we experience and capture it and present it in a way for other people to be able to share that same experience is the hard part. That's the barrier we're trying to breach, is how do we take what we've done and allow other people to experience it through our eyes, through the camera's eyes, and through editing and the whole filmmaking process, and experience the same emotions that we were actually feeling on the water doing what we were doing. Yeah. You're connecting two worlds.
Right. And it's tricky too. It's a fine line. I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of all instinctual about when the artist's perspective is the most important and when the audience's perspective is the most important. I don't know if there's any like hard and fast rules about like just play only to like what audiences like, because that's not the rest. What makes films or any other type of artistic practice interesting is the perspective of the artist, which is unique. The general public doesn't have that perspective. That's why we need artists. So I don't want to say that it's just like, if audiences don't like something, then it's a bad idea, because, some of the greatest works of all time weren't received well in their time. It is important for artists to trust their own instincts, et cetera. But it is sort of this dance between the artist and the audience to sort of like refine and find that happy ground, or middle ground, happy medium. Clean sailing.
And
small, short windows.
Short windows, clean sailing,
Yeah, for the audience, when they watch our film, let us know what you think about the phrase clean sailing.
Yeah. Just go watch it.
Yeah.
Wild-fly.com.
Yeah.
I thought one of the most gratifying things was, and I'd like you guys to speak on this too, especially in the Denver event, but was interacting with the fans and getting to hear like them looking you in the eye and just like, they couldn't believe that you were in front of them, and they were just so loving and supportive of the work, and you can really hear how it impacted them. I even had a guy at the end of the film yesterday in Denver, or here at the Denver show. He was like a pretty introverted guy, and he came up to me, and you could tell he was a little nervous, probably like mid-40s guy, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm pretty introverted. This is really hard for me to even come to this event, but I just wanted to say how much like you sharing like some of your vulnerability and just some of the things you're going through on your films has just helped me." And like, he was like about to tear up, and I was about to tear up, and I was like, oh my gosh, dude. But I think it made me realize just how much it does mean to people, and can art can really impact people, especially if you don't try to put this shield up and you just you share who you are, what things you're going through, keep it real, because more often than not, other people are going through the same kind of things. And I felt like I received, not to that extent, but a lot of comments and feedback from folks who came that felt a similar way. That was, I don't know, but what did you guys think? It was pretty overwhelming. Like, I didn't move at the Denver event. There was a line. It was crazy.
Yeah, I agree. It was pretty overwhelming, and tremendously gratifying too. It makes a lot of the minor stresses seem, or shows how minor they are at the end of the day, and how lucky we are to be able to do what we're doing, and to also have this relationship with all these people, this like outpouring of love and support that, what a privilege to be able to like have this huge community of people backing what you're doing. It's like, I feel really lucky, I think. What about you?
Can you tell how tired I am?
We're all pretty
I'm getting like really lost over here, just like thinking about all the memories. Just like, that's nice.
Start dreaming. Amy's gonna be asleep by the end of this.
Yeah, man, you might have to cut some of this. You might have to cut to the good stuff.
We took a little break mid answer to grab some decaf coffee. And
I got caffeinated.
You got
coffee.
caffeinated. You got caffeinated.
Sissies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Will has had both a downer and an upper now. He's had a beer, and now he's got a caffeinated coffee.
Yeah, tell us about the beer.
Cameraman speedball, dude.
Do we have the beer show? The camera?
So we have I think a 6.8% IPA. So I'm about 6.8% turnt right now. Just so y'all know where we're at. Label was created specifically and the beer I think was brewed specifically for this film release. So it is a fully customized Hope and High Water hazy, obviously. Gotta be hazy.
Had to be hazy. Did you see the water in the film?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think that the beer was brewed with any particular intention regarding it's not like, local like Western Wyoming ingredients or something. It's not themed in that way, but it is an original beer that it's not just another beer that they make with new labeling on it. It can only get this beer with this labeling.
It's cool though. Those little touches I think made the event really special, to have a beer that was designed specifically for the night for people to come and be like, whoa. And I feel like people were stoked about it too. Oh yeah. There's so many photos on Instagram, people tagging us, and
definitely helps that the beer was tasty too.
Yeah.
Has to be
great
good.
Beer.
Has to be good. Exactly.
Very drinkable.
But we were mid question. We were talking about the experience of meeting fans and what that was like for everybody.
Yeah, I was kind of trailing off before, but I guess it's really profound an experience to be able to look people in the eyes and have them express how much they enjoy your work or what it means to them or whatever. Especially, we've been going in this direction for decades now, but particularly post-COVID, our lives are so much online. And for us as filmmakers or artists who primarily exhibit our work online, almost all of our feedback comes through a screen. And although it's real people and you can read people's expressive writing, you don't really have any idea what they're actually, I could sit here and draft with a straight face, a gushing review of something that like I don't even care about, So while it certainly has an impact, reading people say nice things or say mean things about you, being able to see someone's facial expression and their body language and to be able to like touch and embrace that person, it's really, really impactful for me anyway, as a filmmaker in a way that nothing else is. And we get to do so little of that these days, making videos on YouTube where there's always kind of a barrier between you and your audience. So, traditionally this would have been like the primary way that you would exhibit stuff would be to live audiences. I guess, film tours the country, you can't be present at every showing, but it used to be a much more common experience that now we don't get that much. And you can kind of trick yourself into thinking that it's not that important, but I think it's incredibly important. So it was really, really nice to get to have that, even if it was just for 2 showings. I'm looking forward to the next time we get to do that.
Yeah, definitely. What was it like for you, dude?
Back to Will.
There we go. That's what I need, Scotty. That's what I need.
Go doing the Q&A.
I need to get a few more sips in.
Right, yeah, because I was asking you, Will, if you'd ever had live showings like this before with like snowboard videos or whatever, and you said like you've had a couple opportunities with the film fest to like be up on stage with a film that you were part of, but probably nothing that you were like this intimately familiar with. And plus, this is an audience that's here just for us, and that, you know, a big part of that includes you too, like the, you know, our 3 combined YouTube audiences. It's not like a festival where there's people who could be there for particular filmmakers, or they're just there to see fishing films and they know they're going to get a variety of it. Like everyone who was there just to see a film that the 3 of us made, so like they're stoked to see us. Like that's the reason they came out, you know. It's different.
It separated this event from everything else that I've been a part of and been present at. Because most film festivals and film tours involve a number of films. Most of them are cut down from their original length to meet the specifications for that festival, you know, festival cut. And it really is a totally different experience when it's just our film. Especially, you know, it's a long enough film to satisfy an audience for being there just for this film. And you know, if we had a whole film tour with 50 minute to hour long films, you know, you'd be there all day. It would be a day long event. So it's special to be able to show a film of that length to an audience and not have to just like cut your film down just to be a part of something, but then you're there, you are the something. Your film, your creation is the whole reason everyone's there. Because in the film tour, I think the first project I was involved in that was in like a legit film, film tour. This is the fly fishing film tour back in 2019, I think it was 2019. And at that point in my career, I was very early on. I was just one of the 3 or 4 camera guys on the film crew. And so that really dulled down my position of being a part of it to like something very small, but it still felt like a big moment to me. It felt like I was breaking barriers into a new realm in my filmmaking career, to be up on stage with my mentors and people that I looked up to. And, you know, we all went up there and we're like, you know, the crowd cheered and like, yeah, these are the people here. These are the filmmakers. And I looked around, the people next to me were all people that I looked up to before I even started fly fishing and getting into filmmaking. It was originally what kind of got me into the sport, was seeing these people's work. And I didn't know anything about any of it. And I was just a total noob. And now here I was standing next to them. So that was a crazy moment and definitely a milestone in my career. And that was definitely a realization point of like, wow, I can do this. Like, this is something maybe I should be doing and continue to pursue. So it gave me just enough courage to continue on the path. And of course, here we are 5 years later, 4 years later, 5 years later. I'm bad at math.
One of them.
That's why I'm not a mathematician or an engineer.
Masa Menace. Yeah, you're close.
Masa Menace. But 5 years later, 4 years later, we're here, and now we've kind of taken it to the next level. And, you know, feeling that progression as a filmmaker is why I chose this career in the first place, is because, you know, that first time staying on stage and going from knowing nothing about fly fishing or filmmaking to actually progressing to a point where like now our work is being showcased to a crowd. And, you know, here we are a few years later. Now, just this piece that we're all working on is here. The whole crowd is here just for this, not just one little film.
You're one of those guys now. You're one of those guys that you were looking up to. Now there's kids in the crowd looking up at you, you know, hoping one day they'll be on stage with you.
Exactly. And, you know, walking around and conversing with people who were looking up to us, all of us, and are there to support us, was just, you know, it was kind of like looking in a mirror in a lot of ways, because some of the people that we're talking to might be the next up and coming filmmakers and fly fishing superstars.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we're fly fishing superstars. I just said that because it's funny.
Yeah.
But
no, they're going to be the superstars.
they're going to be the superstars, and then we're going to be filming them.
We're going to be the old heads.
Yeah. Well, and you know, something that definitely would not have happened at the Fly Fishing Film Fest, 250 people would not have sang you happy birthday, probably.
Yeah, that was sweet, dude.
Yeah.
That was special. So thank you, everyone. Y'all have beautiful voices, and those cupcakes were amazing.
Yes.
So yeah, that was the icing on the cake, pun intended.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah, I feel like there's still a lot that I'm processing from both events. But there was a couple moments that really stood out, and there's one from Salt Lake. Obviously, first premiere, you don't really know like exactly how it's going to go. Also, like Salt Lake to Denver, just like very different in a lot of ways. But when we had our intermission after showing the film, I went to the bathroom, and I was one of the earlier ones in there. So I came out of the stall in the women's room, and there was a line of ladies waiting to use the bathroom. And the response to me walking out and all of these women just being so excited and being like, wow, like that was incredible. And hearing feedback just from all these women lined up to use the bathroom. It was, because I think that as a female, it's a little scary for me to be really vulnerable and show a lot of myself in these films. And this one was pretty vulnerable in a lot of ways. And the bathroom felt like this little safe space because there's plenty of ladies that came up to me to talk to me at the premiere, but still not even close to how many guys would come up and talk to us. And I think there's still a little bit of that like uncomfortable minority vulnerability, like not as comfortable coming up and talking to people. And that was a really cool experience for me to like have all this camaraderie from a bunch of females who were anglers and who were not anglers and who weren't familiar with tight loops or were familiar. And I think that moment will stick with me for a long time. That was like a real heartwarming piece for me.
Yeah, you probably get an even more like distilled experience than we do often, because there is so much less representation for women that probably like what it means to the people to see you doing what you're doing probably means even more to them than what it does to the average folks looking up to us. I'm not sure quite exactly how to phrase that, but like to the young ladies who your representation in these films and your lifestyle and whatever, like what it means to them probably almost means more than it does to like the young men who look up to us because they've got a lot of figures like that to look up to. We're not, the only gig in town.
It's something I don't think about that often. But certainly being in person, like the two younger girls that were at the Salt Lake event that took a photo with me, and I commented to them, like, it's so cool to see like two young ladies here, like that are stoked on fly fishing and have so much ahead of them. And it was just such a cool feeling for me as a woman to see such an age range of like young girls to like, ladies who were significantly older than me, and just there's a real sense of support that came from that. That was really special.
Yeah, getting to see you on screen could change not only the way people view the world, but how they view themselves, which certainly can happen for us too, but maybe not as commonly. We inspire people to want to do certain things, but you might be inspiring people to like look at themselves differently and value themselves differently and know that they can do certain things.
Yeah, I think it probably gives them a lot of confidence too.
Yeah.
To see you up there just like getting after it, doing your thing, and like sharing some of your story of getting into fly fishing and not being like, I don't really know what this thing is. And then what you've taken out of it. Because we met plenty of couples who they were dragged by their husband or boyfriend or whatever, and they were like kind of into it. They maybe have gone, but it was probably cool on a more human level to relate to some of what you were saying and what you shared in the film, aside from just like, oh, she's going fly fishing, some of your perspectives and everything. So I did think it was cool seeing so many girls there, because our 8% female audience is not very strong on YouTube, but they certainly showed out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't even be speaking to this because I have no business talking about like the female experience, but I assume, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that was my impression from watching some of the women interact with you, is that like it meant a great deal to them,
Yeah, I mean, it meant a lot to me too. Like I said, it's not something I think about all that often. Like, yeah, they're just representation and seeing someone that looks like you, or it has a huge impact across a lot of different things. And it was a good reminder and just, yeah, an incredible experience to be able to share that with so many people in person, face to face, to have people come up to you and talk to you about things that they've seen in your videos and how much it's meant to them or how it's turned them onto this or that's
it's just like these two sides of the experience. You know, we have our own intensely personal experience with making something where the end outcome is like, how does this make me feel? You know, what is my sense of accomplishment with my work or satisfaction with my work, et cetera? But then there's this whole other life of what it means to other people, you know, which we don't get to see except for, you know, on nights like in Salt Lake or Denver, where you can see it in someone's eyes that like this has had a profound effect on them. There's two completely different lives that these projects have. You know, there's like the little insulated world of our own where like they have big effects on our lives working on these projects, personal effects on our lives, but then they go out and they have this domino sort of butterfly effect to all these other people. Cool to get to see.
That might be the coolest thing too, is like you were saying with your film tour moment, we all got into this in some form or fashion of watching fly fishing films or fishing films to get stoked, right? That was like what hooked us in and also probably inspired us to start making films. And so to be now on the other side of that, where there's people coming in who have told you, oh, dude, I got into filmmaking, or I just bought a GoPro. Like, you're planting these seeds you don't even know are happening just by chasing after something and trying to better your craft and tell better stories. And it has a ripple effect, you know, so you're making a positive impact, and it's hard to conceptualize that or understand that until you actually are staring face to face and you can tell this person has actually been impacted by what you do. And you're like, oh, wow, this is real. And it was also really cool that the people there were there for our film. And it wasn't like some industry event where there's just a bunch of industry heads and guides and stuff. They were just like, oh, I just got to go to this thing to like mingle and network. Like, people were there because they wanted to see it and wanted to be around us. And they were so appreciative of the event. So many people thanked me for like doing
right, which is so weird. It's like, no, like, thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Guys.
Because it just feels weird even to charge for tickets, you know? Obviously, there's a lot of costs for this this whole thing to happen. So the tickets, you obviously, we're providing an experience, so we do charge. But there's just a little bit of like feeling guilty, or it just feels weird to like ask for money. But people are so happy to support. So that kind of helped flip that on my end too. It's like, oh, we shouldn't feel so bad. People want to help. They want to be a part of this journey with us. And celebrate it together. You know,
without them, this wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. And I was thinking that the whole time. You know, if none of those people decided to show up, if we wouldn't have had an event at all.
Yeah.
So it's because of everyone here watching. You guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
And you. And
a lot off of that goes kind of into how we wanted to release this, you know, a little differently than we've done in the past through a paywall. Essentially, I'm sure we can go into this, but we're releasing it through a pay what you think is fair model.
Just get into it, Scotty.
Yeah.
Get into
just
it.
Rip right into it.
Shameless plug. But as I think we look at this film as like a real movie, and we put a lot into this. And, you know, I've never charged for a YouTube video. I put 200 plus videos out on YouTube for free. And I wanted to have a project where we really went all in on it. We got the best team we could together. We put all the best resources into it and made something that was, you know, movie-like, something you could go watch at the theater or could compete with Netflix. And I think we accomplished that. I feel like we accomplished that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think through this model, people will be able to support the film. You can pay anywhere from $1 up to whatever you want, whatever you feel is a fair donation for this film. And that will, you know, allow us to not only, this was a completely self-funded project for one, but it'll help fund the project that we shot and all the expenses, but also help fund future projects that we do together, so we can continue to elevate it. So this gives the audience a chance to be a part of that as well. You know, maybe some people don't care to buy merch all the time, but they want to support this way. And so I thought it'd be a fun experiment to see if people would watch it and get to see it. And we'll see. I guess people listening now can go watch it now, and
Yep.
we'll see. We hope you guys pay, and we hope it's worth however much you donate. But
Yeah.
should be cool.
Scotty needs a new vehicle, guys. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, that's true though.
This is an experiment to see
it's
how
to make more
quickly
movies,
we
but-
can get Scotty a new vehicle.
Yeah,
Just
we want to
kidding.
make more films, but really we got to get some wheels for this kid.
You should see the pilot.
Guys, I just want to be able to make the ski resorts. Come on.
No, obviously, I think any audience watching or listening to this knows that, yeah, it's not lifestyles of the rich and the famous over here. We just want to keep making movies.
Yeah, I think it's fun to experiment and see what proves to be sustainable for us. It puts the power in all the people's hands to like really push for more of what they want to see too, like longer form, collaborative projects, pay what you think is fair, paywalls like this. Still make it accessible to most people. If you think about like you can pay $1 if that's what you need to pay, and for other people who feel like they can donate more, it's a great way to take some of that power and really like show us what you want to see more of. So
Yeah,
I'm very excited to see what the response is.
yeah, value for everyone isn't necessarily in things. Some people value the experience of being able to watch a film or to see us succeed, or whatever. They're happy to. They might not want a bunch of shirts or whatever. They don't care about shirts or prints or hoodies or whatever, but they want to have a way to be able to support us financially or whatever. So there's a great opportunity to do that. It's not always easy to like create a platform where people can just like toss money if they want to toss money, and there's also no pressure to toss money if you don't want to toss money. But
And I think what we're trying to provide too is an experience for the audience that is elevated from the films, or continue to elevate it from the films that we've already made, to continue providing that experience at a high production value and the best storytelling we can.
yeah, because that's the thing. At the end of the day, like you could make videos for free, but they're not going to be like this one. Like just don't. It's simple math about like how much time and resources you have to produce something. So the higher quality something gets, which I think is a net benefit to the audience, it just takes more resources, more time, more money. And yeah, with stuff like this that we're self-funding, when you say self-funding, you're kind of saying like audience funded, you know what I mean? I mean, we only have so much money to spend on it, and you can do that once or twice. You can float it and hope that an audience will respond on the other end and help support it. But if you can only do that a couple of times, if it falls flat before you don't have any more self funds to fund a project, So yeah, we'll see how this goes. I think we're all anticipating that it'll go well just based on the reaction and audience support so far. I think people are pretty generous and giving, and it's just cool for people to be involved in that way. It makes you a part of the team.
And we wanted to be able to give back too, and be able to give resources back to initiatives that are based in the area that we were fishing in, and in the West. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Western Native Trout Initiative. You're probably the most familiar with the kind of work that they're doing, but we are going to be donating a certain amount of proceeds from the paywall back to the Western Native Trout Initiative, which I think brings everything kind of full circle for us to be able to give back to that resource. And
yeah. I mean, I'll keep it short and sweet, but WNTI, or Western Native Trout Initiative, is a conservation organization, nationally based conservation organization that does conservation, habitat, restoration work all across the Western United States, preserving native fish species, primarily, as the name implies, trout, salmonid species, which this film was highlighting a native trout species. So, it's easy for us to make films that are, how do I put this? We're utilizing a resource that is delicate, and sorry guys, I'm going into the grizzly maze.
he's lost. Aimee, help him out.
Immediately started talking about.
I was trying. Okay, no, I got it. I was trying to find the words for it. It is a non-renewable resource.
It's a delicate resource.
In one sense, it's renewable
Treat it
in
with
that
respect and care.
yeah, fish continue to reproduce, etc. But it is ultimately a non-renewable resource in terms of consumptive use of it, and even catch and release fishing is still consumptive to a degree. So we're trying to offset our impact in that way by helping to provide monies to conservation organizations who help preserve and conserve and make sure that that resource can be renewable in the future. So yeah, we don't know exactly what the number is yet that we're going to donate, because it largely depends on what the overall numbers are, period. It's hard to say like we're going to donate, X number of thousands of dollars, and we don't even make that much money to be able to donate. So it'll be a sliding scale depending on how well the project does. But it was really important for us to provide a percentage of that to give back to the resource that gives us so much, because our careers ultimately depend on it. You can't make fishing films without fish. So
yeah, I think this trip overall to really open my eyes to what we talk about in the film about just the introduction of invasive species to the West. And obviously there's no way for us to go back in time. People are in a completely different world then. They're sort of trying to survive. They're trying to feed themselves or whatever. But it is very interesting when you look at our human impact on these places. And like this area we went in particular, the first day, we get there and we hook into a brook trout. First fish, and we're like, well, this is supposed to be a native Yellowstone cutthroat, one of the last strongholds of where pure Yellowstone cutthroat that have existed for millions of years or whatever. But we hook into a brookie that's been introduced, and they're all over the place, and so it's really opened my eyes to. I've always been a fan of native species, but I think it really hit me more so on this trip, and hearing how much it means to you guys, and watching For Wild's sake and learning more about the history of these different places. So I think that's also why it meant so much for us to donate some of these proceeds back to Winty, which is doing a lot of work on the ground to protect a lot of these native species.
yeah, it's cool. And you could tell that the conservation themes that we brought up in this film were resonating with audiences. I don't know about you, but I had a number of people come up to me during our sort of social mingling at these events and say how grateful they were for that type of messaging and how important those issues were to them also, and how glad they were to see them represented in the film. We had people in the Q&A asking conservation-based questions around the film, et cetera. So it's clearly people are interested in that stuff, and they're glad to see it in fishing films, because I think largely, obviously, in the last 5 years, native fish are really, and conservation is having like a real moment, in the space. It's more in vogue now than it ever has been. But traditionally, fishing films are mostly just about catching fish. And I think people either didn't care to speak on these issues or felt that talking about them was, bringing down the mood or something of a good old fashioned, because fishing for most people is supposed to be fun. And sometimes when you start thinking about declining fisheries, et cetera, it's not a very fun thing to think about. So people don't want to talk about it that much, but it's whether we want to think about it or not, it's a reality that we live in. So I think people are kind of sick of that, and they're happy to see people addressing it head on and talking about it, if nothing else, because as we alluded to in one of the Q&A sessions, someone was asking us what we thought about the sort of sustainability of the future of fisheries with increased angling days and angler numbers, et cetera, was, the sort of big takeaway that I was trying to express to the person who asked the question was that at the end of the day, like more educated anglers in the water, I think is a net positive for fish, because it's just future stewards who care, whatever the motivation is. Maybe on the one hand, if you're just a wildlife advocate, you'd be like, I want people to care about fish who don't want to hook them. Like I want people who just care about fish for fish. But at the end of the day, to the species, it doesn't matter why you care about the fish. As long as you care about them and you're invested in seeing more of them in the future, it's going to achieve the same goal that everyone in conservation is looking towards, which is just better habitat, more fish, thriving. And anglers are tremendously important advocates for fish. So
Well said.
Yeah, strong.
Strong bites. Yeah, what was your takeaway, Will, like filming and documenting this process? Because especially with interviews and just talking and with Chase and Aimee and all of us about the native species and everything, what was it like on your end?
Yeah, that was really cool getting to hear in person and actually ask y'all interview questions about native fish and a lot of the topics that you touch on in most of your other work and incorporate it into this project. Because I feel like for me, from a filmmaking perspective, I definitely wanted to include a lot of similarities from other work that you've put out and incorporate that in this film, like the Super 8 stuff, of course. And like that inspired me to bring the Super 8. I was like, oh yeah, I have to bring my Super 8.
Nailed it.
If we're going to be filming with tight loops, like, you know. And yeah, I think that was definitely something going into this project I knew that we had to touch on and that it would be a big part of it. Of course, it couldn't be the only thing. We had to include some Scotty style too, some dangling.
I'm just a dangler.
And so, you know, going into this project, I think it was important to highlight everyone's style and bring in, you know, the full encompassing experience of wildfly and tight loops, not just tight loops, not just wildfly. And
Wild loops on the fly.
Wild loops on the fly. And I think
PHLY.
PHLY, that's correct. And I think we did that for sure. And it was really cool trying to encompass all of those things in one project. So, you know, that was exciting. And also, yeah, going back to the native fish talk, being out in the field and actually being on the water with you guys and hearing the facts in real time was pretty cool, and trying to capture that on camera. It's not always easy trying to capture the audio when it's actually happening and Scotty catches his first brook trout and you guys are all talking about it. Yeah, I think it kind of just happened naturally. I didn't really have to force anything from a cameraman perspective. Be like, hey, talk about this, talk about the native fish, talk about this and that. Like, you guys all, it's just ingrained in what you do and how you go about your fishing experience. It's a big part of it. You know, we're not just trying to go catch a big thermop, rainbow, or brown.
Thermop, baby.
If we were fishing with someone else, like, yeah, maybe we'd want to go catch a big fish, and that would be the biggest part of the film. Is like, yeah, let's go catch this big fish. Like, some people are all about that, but I know you guys aren't all about that, and that's none of our goal was to just go out and catch a giant fish. You know, the goal was to catch a native Yellowstone cutthroat. So that was just something that came along naturally from the filmmaking process. I don't think we need.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that contrast. So when this film wrapped, I think we were like a day ahead of schedule or something, because as you'll see in the film, some weather kind of shut things down early, and we had this extra day. So we were near the town of Thermopolis in Wyoming, and there's a handful of kind of famous fisheries there with some big fish, and we went and camped and fished this sort of tailwater fishery for.
Can't believe you're spot burning
right
now.
guys,
it's a sacred place.
Guys, I have not said the name of this river, all right?
Near Thermopolis.
We've already said Thermop, all right? People can figure it out.
Keep the secret, keep safe.
But yeah, we're fishing just sort of standard tailwater Western fishery. You know, there's a million rivers like this all over the U.S. You don't have to go to Thermopolis to find this kind of fishing.
I'm just
yeah. But we went and caught some of these kind of big chewed up finned stalker fish, and like, it's very exciting. You know, we're all having a good time. We're like,
I would just
Aimee
like to say I
Aimee
didn't
didn't
fish for these fish.
Name's way too cool.
He's above it.
but you know, like, we were hooting and hollering and like kind of laughing about these, like, you know, mutant stalker fish that we were catching or whatever. It was a lot of fun. You know, it's fun fishing, but the experience is so different. Even though it's gratifying to like sight fish a big rainbow or something and get it to take a dry fly and get it in the net, and you get just 20-inch fish or whatever. I feel like the lasting experience of that just like immediately disappears after releasing the fish.
All you're left with is
Agreed.
the mutant thermop.
Right. And like, yeah, we're still talking
what
about.
Sticks with you is their mutant quality.
We're still talking about the experience, probably because of like how stark that contrast was between fishing for this native, beautiful, perfect fish in this grand landscape, and knowing that that fish has been there for tens of thousands of years, exactly where it's supposed to be. It looks like it's supposed to be there because that's where it, you know, it's just so different than from being below some big dam in some warm water with tank scrubber fish or whatever. And it's not to say that the fishing is any less fun from just a fishing perspective, but that sort of connectivity to your environment and that sort of holistic experience. I mean, there's just like no comparison. And it was a very funny contrast to go from one to the other afterwards, you know.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I'm glad we
like you guys are all stoked when you came back though. Like, yes. So, you know.
Well, and because at the end of the day, you know, like those rivers are they're never going to become native fish rivers ever again. The habitat,
they have their place.
Is too degraded. It's too big. It's too complex. As of now, we don't have any conservation tools that will ever turn like the main stem Montana rivers. You know, the Madison will never become a West Slope cutthroat fishery ever again. You know, there's just we don't have the tools to reverse that stuff. So while it's certainly important to highlight the conservation of native fish where it's possible and the places where it's not, like, I think it's still okay to just have like guilt-free fun fishing in a resource that, like, you know, is only the resource is what it is at this point.
It's an arena for fishing, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and like you highlighted in the film, you know, there's a strong point about just we were looking for a wild experience in a wild place. And what comes with that is, you know, a lot of times like unexpected weather, wild conditions, unplanned conditions. It's not like, oh, what's the CFS at the dam today? Oh, it's, you know, it's running the same as it has every day or whatever. Yeah. You know, we literally, I'm not going to say it, but just the fluctuation of the water was so wild.
Right.
And how we were able to be there for the amount of time to see it go up and down and see when the rain would come in and see the like real time impact. I'm like, well, we can't do anything about it. It's just, we just have to wait.
It's such a different pace. I think it's a much more natural human pace than sort of like fish on demand or anything on demand that we're used to now. Pull up your phone, anything you want, it's right there. You know, to be in this situation where like, well, I have to wait. Like there is nothing I can do here. I think, you know, not everyone has the time in their lives to just sort of sit around for a week on the weather, but I do find those experiences quite enjoyable to sort of like set your own human pace to the pace of the outside world. And obviously I think that feels very natural because for the vast majority of humans' existence on Earth, that was the only way that we were able to live. We're very disconnected from those rhythms now. So it's nice to be able to make the time to be more connected to that, even if initially it's frustrating because you think that you have limited time and you don't have time to be sitting around. I think it does the human spirit good to sort of align yourself with natural rhythms like that, even if they're not conducive to good fishing at first, you know, like, yeah, important human experience, I think.
I feel like that's partially why we all seek out backcountry trips, like whether it's a bike pack, a backpack, a canoe trip, is because you don't have those normal wild experiences anymore on a day-to-day basis. You really have to work hard now to like seek them out, to put yourself in the elements of like us being up on the ridge line of a mountain with our bikes, getting annihilated by mosquitoes, and then slugging our way to camp and finally like setting up a fire and like that's like the best thing of your day. Like those things are so underappreciated from a wide angle unless you're actually in that moment or getting shat on with rain for however long and you're just sitting in your tent or your camper. You know, I don't know. I thought it was just besides the fishing, it was overall very net positive in terms of the life experience. And for all of us, just getting to hang.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like it's human instinct to want to sort of like coddle ourselves and make comfortable, controlled environments, but our bodies and our brains were designed to deal with a great deal of adversity and variety like that. I mean, that's how we became what we are. So I think we do kind of crave it a little bit. It's weird. It's like we're fighting against our better interests by insulating ourselves the way we are. I mean, to a degree, right? And, you know, a couple hundred years ago, probably max life expectancy was like 35 because, you know, you were out in the elements all the time and life was hard. Yeah. Life is, you know, ostensibly much better now. But at the same time, yeah, we're almost swinging a little bit too far away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's how I feel about it anyway.
Yeah.
Teach their own. There's no, you don't have to go bike packing for native fish to enjoy your life, but
Yeah.
it's incredibly
No, Chase,
incredibly meaningful and impactful to us anyway. I suggest everyone at least give it a shot.
Yeah. Just doing hard things. I think that's like a lesson we've all learned. It's more fulfilling. But going back to the events, what was y'all's favorite part about the events? I know we had two, and you just got to see the Denver one, but what like really stood out to you, and that was the best part?
Oh gosh, I was like about to say what I thought the best part was, but then I was like, oh my gosh, but I feel like there's like 3 or 4 things that really stand out to me. The first thing that popped into my mind though is like hearing someone laugh at something when you expect them to, like they're understanding and they're feeling the same thing that like you were trying to get across. It feels like you're literally sitting in a room of people who are kind of strangers but kind of friends, and you're all laughing at the same thing, and there's just like a camaraderie that comes with that. That was really special. It makes you feel really good, like in here. But definitely being able to interact and talk to so many people. I think for Chase and I, as like relatively introverted folks, it's socially challenging to like put yourself out there and be in that setting and be talking to so many people, but you walk away from that experience with your cup so full. Like it's just an outpouring of support that is hard to put into words, but it really like motivates you to keep making and keep doing and keep sharing it with people.
Yeah, I imagine all of our favorite things are going to be some version of, the human connection of the live events, which is really the strong suit of it. Maybe you'd think that like our favorite thing would be just like successfully like completing a film and like having people cheer at the end, but like that wasn't really like the major impact, at least for me. And I assume obviously that's pretty much what Aimee said, and I assume it's probably true for you guys too. It's just the ability to have face-to-face connection with people who you may never have met before, but you have this like long history with because they've been following along with your work. I really enjoyed, the Q&As where people could speak to us directly like that. It was fun hearing what cool and like great questions people had to ask about us and about our work. And it was cool having people ask stuff about the film and this project and how interested they were in what goes into making a project, etc. But then also to have people bring up like deep cuts from a decade ago, asking us about our videos or something in our personal lives.
People asking about like film photography and cameras and things like that. It's like, stuff you don't get to talk about that often. And to have that connection with someone that you've never met before. And it leaves a lasting impression for sure.
Yeah. It's a reminder of like your true fans too, and not trying to continue to seek out the people you don't have yet, but like really focus in on like, no, these are the people that are important. Like these are the ones that are going to show up every single week to watch a new video. They're going to be the ones coming out to these events. They're going to tell their friends, like, what do they want out of this, instead of trying to appeal to the masses. But one of my favorite parts was just the whole chemistry of the team and everyone that was involved in putting these together, especially the Denver one. Because we had, I feel like, one under our belt, and we rolled in. We had some more help with the Denver one. My whole family came in. My best buddy came in. I think I mentioned that earlier. Brent was helping organize everything, and it was so cool. Like, even though I was getting bombarded by people to talk to, and there was like a huge line of people coming up, and it was amazing. I didn't get to move all night, but I got to see like my mom and Luke and Lucas, my brother, working the merch table, and then I got to see JD up there playing music. Dustin was running around doing the beer. Like, that was so cool to see it all working together, and people really enjoying the experience of just a live event and getting to meet other anglers too.
You're telling me your favorite thing wasn't ripping solos at the Salt Lake City show with Raccoon Rodeo, baby.
Raccoon Rodeo, the new band, the boys.
Let's go.
New music coming soon. That was sick. That was actually really fun. But I don't think I fully got to enjoy it just probably because I was so sleep deprived.
Sleep deprived and like pulled in a bunch of different directions.
My
and like
mind was going so many different directions. And then the boys called me up on stage and we played, for 45 minutes or whatever, which was so fun to finally play our songs in front of people. But yeah, I was definitely up there. Like, I remember just like looking down for a while and then looking up and there's just all these people. I'm like, whoa. This is bizarre.
Yeah, for people who weren't there, both of these events had a live music component in Salt Lake.
And it was your first time playing a live show.
Yeah. Scotty and his band Raccoon Rodeo got up and played like an hour-long set before the film. And then in Denver, JD Clayton, who has music in this film, Hope and High Water, was there and played also like an hour-plus set in person, which was really, really cool. And we hope that if we do more events like this in the future, we can continue to do stuff like that, which in and of itself is like this whole other amazing experience. Like it's worth coming out just to see live music. I mean, I don't know how much, everyone who was there has like gone out and seen live music before, but I know not everybody does that. And to like come out for a film and then to also get this experience of being able to see live music in front of you, which is, we talked about it a bunch over these events, like what a special experience that is to watch people play music live. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah, shout out to JD. What a sweet guy.
Yeah.
Just blended in like he was part of the family.
And it was so cool too because we were both having like this like similar moment where we were all like kind of in awe of like watching, like a really dialed professional musician give a performance, being like, oh man, it's like so cool that you're here. And he was like a big fan of both of our work too. And he was like, dude, this is like a dream for, like, I can't believe I'm here. And we're like, we can't believe you're here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That was,
totally.
that was cool.
Yeah. And we had a conversation with him last night, just how fueled up and inspired he was going into this next year from this event, and just how it got his mind turning on all these ideas for his upcoming tour and just year. And I was like, it's just so amazing that this wasn't a live like concert event. Like we had live music there, but he was inspired by elements of it that'll hopefully continue to elevate his career or whatever. I do want to bring a special guest in if he's not asleep over there.
He's probably too busy with all the tasks you gave him, Scotty.
This is our boy Brent. Many of you might know Brent from the Bike Pack or other videos. Squeeze in here, bud.
Oh boy.
Be rent.
Now that we have this camera on. Brent has been
You're like cammed in here.
like clams,
Yeah.
dude. A uniform on.
We gotta, I think Chase might need to squeeze in there too. You have the same colored pants on. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, this is Brent. He is the manager here at Wildfly Productions. Whoa, big time. He's been helping us out the last year and really added a lot of structure to like what we do and made a lot of the projects and especially this event possible. So huge thank you to you. You were helping organize a bunch of things and get everyone in order, and it really allowed us to just be there and kind of soak it in and not have to worry about all the things. So like, what was it like on your end? Like what was your perspective? You were seeing us like talk to people, and you got to like from a wide angle kind of be there.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was kind of like in and out of actually being present there, because we need to set up chairs and take chairs down or whatever. So running some of the logistics pulls you out of like feeling the audience interact with you guys, but it was like a refresh so I got to experience this audience interacting with some good friends and some new peers in just the most authentic way. Like I've been to ski premieres, mountain bike film premieres. None of them felt the same. I know you guys have already covered this, but I wanted to reiterate it. So yeah, wild.
So sick.
Yeah.
Were there any funny moments or any odd things that we would have missed because we were all tied up talking with people? Or any like behind the scenes drama that happened?
the all of the friends that you had invited that helped out, I'm not going to spend the time to name them all, but they were all so dialed. These were like the smoothest things I've ever been a part of. Put on big mountain bike races with professional careers or professional people helping out. This went way smoother because everyone wanted to help. But what was the question again?
Like, yeah. Was there anything that we maybe missed or any like behind the scenes drama that happened?
Yeah. I was leading up to at the merch table, kids and their parents would come up and be like, "Oh, I brought a gift I want to give to Scotty. Like, how can we get you in the front of the line?" Whatever. So they go visit Scotty, and then someone comes up and Lori's like, "Oh yeah, how can I help you?" To the husband. And the wife's like, "Oh, I don't even know Scotty. Like, I'm here for Mama Fly."
Oh,
Wow.
that's amazing.
And someone asked her for a selfie. I don't know, there's just like a bunch of little fun moments that
Yeah.
Yeah.
you guys had no chance of seeing, but
Yeah, I heard she signed an autograph for her first
she was signing autographs. Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, that's fun, man. I remember panicking at the end of the Denver event because we had planned. It was Will's 30th birthday a couple days ago, and so we were like planning to give him these cupcakes. And it came towards the end, and I looked at Aimee. I was like, "Holy shit, where are the cupcakes? Like, where's Brent?"
Yeah, you were like full panic.
Yeah,
I was
so
like,
I just disappeared.
Yeah.
And I was looking.
well, I
for
said,
you.
go find your mom or Brent. Like, they know what's going on. The cupcakes are secured. Like, it's going to be okay. And you were just
so-
like, "Boom," gone.
We're up on this like high platform area of the
Up
venue.
on your high horse up there.
Yeah.
And I just start like frantically walking through the back of the crowd, and they're like, "Dude, this is so good! Like, great filming." I'm just like,
Scotty's like tunnel vision, like, cupcakes,
"Need Brett,
cupcakes.
need mom. Where are they?"
Yeah.
And I go back to where you were, and you weren't there anymore. And I was like, "No." Fortunately, my mom was there, and I was like, "Mom, where are the cupcakes? We got to get the cupcakes." And she, of course, got up. "Oh, I got you." And like, we got it all figured out, and we were able to find you and make it work. But we just wanted it to be a cool surprise, and I'm glad it worked out.
That was my favorite moment of the whole night, was getting to blow out the candles and think about how old I am, and then eat some more cake.
Dirty 30, baby.
Yeah.
You know, thanks. That really meant a lot, though. It was cool to feel that appreciation for being there, and getting to hear everyone, all 350 something people, sing happy birthday to me. I felt very special. On my high horse, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, what was it like for you the week leading up to the event? Because you were in the trenches with us. You weren't necessarily editing, but you were helping facilitate stuff for the event, and like you were in that room with us finishing.
Yeah, that was really cool. We got to like watch a almost final cut of the film together and kind of all take notes and figure out what little touches you wanted to add to it. And like, I think it probably was refreshing because I don't have much of the editing brain, and I haven't been staring at this project for like ever. So yeah, I mean, like, cool to watch it from not inside the edit, and felt like maybe there was some value add there.
Yeah.
But
I feel like because you were not there on the trip, you were like really the first person fully outside of that trip with a different perspective, or like, it's easy for all four of us, I'd say, and especially Scotty and Chase and myself, to be watching that, and like, we were there, so it reads different for us. And when you and Mama Fly came in there and gave your feedback, it was like oh yeah, like, this is like total outside perspective and like super valuable insight and little tweaks that needed to be made to make sure that the point was getting across.
And some critical tweaks. There was like
yeah, I mean, like, really important feedback,
there's a
for
part
sure.
in the intro, or in the first, I would say, third of the film, that you reflected on after us watching, and I obviously have been watching it back. It's too many times, right? And there's like a key moment that you brought up, a question of just like a why, that was maybe missing from the intro. And so that was good for us to reflect and then find something to address that why. And so that was super valuable.
That was super scary, actually. I'm sure you guys have told the timeline already, but I mean, this was day before the export. So midnight the day before the export. And so you didn't really want to give any feedback that would make you have to go back in and do hours and hours of work. I figured you probably, if I gave you feedback like that, you wouldn't go do all the work. You'd be like, that probably doesn't matter. But at the same point, I didn't want you in the back of your mind going, oh shoot, should I do this or not? So I almost didn't say anything on that, because it could have turned into a big fix. Like, it could have spiraled, several hours of editing away. But luckily we found a quick fix.
We made it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think feedback like that is super valuable. And just it's important to have multiple perspectives, like we've been saying this whole time.
Fun to be a part of. Like, you guys are machines. You're super creative. It is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciated all the organization that you brought to the chaos that it felt like at times for us, I think. And like always, you were always the calm voice of like, we got this throughout the whole process, which is very, very valuable and helpful.
Yeah, which creates an environment for, you know, sensitive, flaky art types like ourselves to be sensitive, flaky art types and not have to think about all the other chaos. Because there's definitely, I mean, I was aware we were sheltered from it, insulated from it because of the work that you guys were doing. But I was definitely aware that like there was chaos going on around like the events, et cetera, and like
Brent
getting
did go and buy
line.
us wiper fluid.
Yep.
Because
He bought us wiper fluid, a new hard drive, and what was the third
Ricolas.
thing? Ricolas.
Yeah,
three most random requests in one order.
That's the crazy thing is like there was so much work and it came so far down to the wire. Like, yeah, like we couldn't leave the house to run an errand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, like
every minute
we don't have
like
food to eat.
for.
Like we have to eat. Like we don't have time to like order food or go out and get food. And you know, Brent's doing that stuff. But then also like the events planning, like there's a
so much
shit ton of logistics, man, to make one of these things happen. It's not like you just call up a venue and they say like, cool. And like the structure's all there and you just like tickets at the door and like, that's it. Like every single thing that people experienced at these events had to be curated by someone. And that someone was, you know, largely Brent and your mom and a couple other people.
I did a lot of that work.
Yeah. Obviously huge shout out to her. None of these events would have been possible, especially the Salt Lake one. It came, you know, she had to put all the other things she was doing with merch kind of on hold, like wholesale orders, and just really buckle down for like 2 weeks to work on these. The amount
it was closer to a month and a half.
Probably a month, yeah. The amount of permits we had to fill out for the Salt Lake event and hoops and like
that was fees. A really cool thing. She had to go through all of that stuff, and it took us a lot more work on the front end to do the Salt Lake event because we wanted to do 21 and under. You really wanted to do 21 and under, like allow all ages in, excuse me.
Yeah.
And it would have been so easy to like, no, let's not get those permits. Let's just do it at a bar and make it 21 plus. But man, watching those young kids and their parents come in to see their inspiration in person.
Those young girls too, they were there. Yeah, I think that made it worth it.
Yeah.
Obviously just funky alcohol laws in Utah made it a little tricky, but you know, we got her done and it was really rewarding to be able to like just celebrate this thing in person with everybody. So shout out to all you guys. This was such a fun thing, and I can't wait for everyone to see it here soon. I mean, I guess when they're listening to this, they're gonna be able to see it. Yeah, if you again, we've said it again throughout the podcast, but if you guys do want to see the film, just go. It's on our website, wild-fly.com. You'll find it on there. It'll be all over.
If you miss it, I'll be surprised. It'll be all over social media.
Yeah.
But yeah, go support it. It'll be fun.
Yeah, pay what you think is fair. A portion of it is going to Western Native Trout Initiative, and we're just super stoked about the film and excited for you guys to be a part of it. So,
thank you, Scotty.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason, Amy. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Super fun.
Yeah.
The A-team.
The A-team,
excited to see what we can come up with down the road here.
Hell
New projects down the line.
Yep.
Sweet. Well, thanks guys for listening. Yeah. We'll see you in the next one.